What is up, YouTube? And today we're going to be talking about the new Ice Mage coming to the game, Fumyr. As you guys can see, these are her stats on your screen here. This is actually my first time looking at her kit. I didn't really look at her before I made this video. I decided why not do just like a live reaction. The only thing I really noticed is that she's holding a Primo Gem from Genshin Impact. It pretty much looks identical, and her artwork looks pretty amazing. But as you guys can see, she has very high speed for a mage. She has pretty decent effectiveness and effect resist as well. And she also has her imprint effectiveness. So it kind of signals that she will be using debuffs of some sort and kind of like a opener or maybe a secondary opener because of her high base speed. So this is her skill 2, Elemental Inquiry. It looks like it's going to be a passive with a secondary effect. And you're going to see basically at the start of Fire and Earth Elemental allies' turns, she is Ice, so basically anything that is RGB besides her own element. She will grant Elemental Wisdom to herself. Now, Elemental Wisdom is going to be a stacking defense buff, and it can only be granted by any ally other than the caster, and this only stacks once per element. So basically, if you have 2 fire element units go in a row, you're only going to get 1 stack, so you need fire and then earth to go. And then I believe you need your 3rd unit to be another fire or of the earth element. I'm not too sure exactly how this works. If you guys have a better idea, let me know in the comments down below. But as we know, with Smilegate always, translates skills from Korean to English, or even in the Korean base version, which I look at sometimes, like, it doesn't really make sense. It's very, very ambiguous, so I don't really know how this works, but we'll see when it comes out. But basically, you're going to see when you have 3 stacks of this Elemental Wisdom, which is the highest stacks, you get that defense buff, right, up to 15%. You're also going to activate another skill, and that extra skill is going to be known as Fruit of Knowledge. 4-turn cooldown, it is a full strip, 100% chance to sleep after you skill enhance it, and also an 85% chance to decrease defense. So pretty much like Fire Tenebria's S3, but it's going to actually be a little bit better because it is not an attack skill, meaning that you can actually land against Earth Elemental units. So if you actually look at the animation here, this wants to play, looks pretty cool, and you're going to see that it does land on the Ocean Breeze Luca, kind of hard to see. Now you can see here. So it is a non-attack skill, and I believe that damage onto Angel of Light is probably an artifact, which we'll probably see in the future. I'm not too sure. Next, you're going to see your skill 3, Sensory Dissection. Sensory Dissection is basically going to be decreasing buff durations of the enemy by 1 turn, and then you'll attack, decreasing speed for 2 turns, pushing back CR, and you're going to see that when you actually land this, if you're granted Elemental Wisdom, you'll deal fixed damage, and this fixed damage will increase proportional to the number of elemental stacks up to a maximum of 9,000. So I do believe that was the effect that we just saw in the, basically this ability. I think what happened is she actually S3'd and did the damage and the speed down onto the AOL, so that's why I did extra damage. And then afterwards, what happened was that her S2 Fruit of Knowledge procced, and you see that sleep and decreased defense. And the cool thing is, when you use your S3, if your Fruit of Knowledge procs, the fixed damage is after, so you'll land the sleep and have the defense break still, and you won't wake them up from the sleep. And the biggest thing about this is you can soul burn this to actually ignore effect resist. Yeah, pretty annoying. I think the ignore effect resist on this is not as broken as like Lua's and like Noggles, because you're just decreasing buff durations by 1 turn and decreasing speed and CR, and not really increasing cooldowns. But you can still see it does have ignore effect resist, pretty toxic to the game, and this is going to cripple at least 1 unit because it'll decrease speed and also push back CR. I think the biggest part here though is going to be that Elemental Wisdom stack doing 9,000 fixed damage. That's pretty insane for a support unit. But yeah, I think that's pretty much what the skill was, right? So I think this is the animation here. Yeah, this is the animation. I think the big animation's on the Fruit of Knowledge S2. Or I guess this animation is the S3 animation. Okay, so this is the S3 animation, and the Fruit of Knowledge animation is this one. So interesting. But yeah, you can see our artwork is pretty cool using Primo Gems and stuff like that. But also we have our S1, single target attack. 50% chance to decrease attack, so nothing too crazy. Decreased attack is good, but it's not like game breaking like a silence, like AOL or Noggle, or like a stun for other units. So pretty cool. I don't think it's gonna really matter too much because it probably doesn't do a lot of damage, right? Wow, 800 damage, does land a decreased attack, but it's only at a 50% chance, so it's not even that great. So now we have her artifact. It is going to be mage exclusive because she's a mage, and is going to give everyone's effectiveness by 10%, and at the end of every 2 ally turns, except for the caster, you'll get CR pushed by 10%, going up to 20%, and this will activate every 2 turns. And this is going to work very well for her because you want her to go after like 2 allies at least to get that Elemental Wisdom built up, so you can do your S3 and do a ton of damage, and potentially activate your S2 for your knowledge after. But also, you also want Toggle House Ancient Book, because if we actually look here, her S3 needs a Soul Burn to ignore effect resist. Now, this one isn't as powerful, like I mentioned, as other ignore effect resist skills, but still very nice to have, because you can guarantee that you can cripple an enemy by pushing back their CR and also decreasing their speed. So might be not as good as a Toggle House Ancient Book on her, but I think this still seems pretty good, because only 10% effectiveness, but mostly because with her Elemental Inquiry, her S2, after you actually have 2 allies go, she can push ahead and cut enemy openers if you have 2 fast units with her, and then be able to actually use her S3. But yeah, I think it's a pretty cool artifact. Don't think it's like anything crazy, but definitely will synergize with her kit. Now, this unit does release, I believe, on the 16th of November. Yep, 16th of November, and she will run for 2 weeks because she's a new unit. She's not limited, and personally, at first glance, I think this unit is not good, honestly. Like, looking at her base stats here, like, she's decently fast. You don't want her to be the fastest because you need units to go before her. She has effect resist, which is kind of random. I think it'd be better off just going into effectiveness. I get that, debuffers do want some effect resist sometimes to resist getting controlled and allowing them to actually take their turn. But I think for her, like, you're pretty much guaranteeing that you have to go first with this. You need 2 allies to go before her, and then you need your artifact to activate if you're running it on her, and then you need to actually land your debuffs. But I think it's very hard to speed tune and actually make her work, because not only do you need 2 fast units before her, but you also need them to be a fire and earth element. So what fast fire openers do we have? Noggle, she gets countered by a ton of other units because her base speed's too low. For green units, what do we have? We have, I guess, green Sid, I guess. There's probably another one I'm missing out that's pretty big. I guess like green Laika. But their base speed also gets outsped by the common openers like Conquer Lias. All the fast RGB units are actually ice. We have Peyra and we have Rand, the 2 best fast ice openers. So for that reason, it's very hard to actually make her work. The other openers are going to be like Moonlight units. So yeah, I don't know what units are going to synergize well with her. I think it's going to be very hard to use her. And of course, she's only going to be used for PvP, which drops her value even more for newer players. But if you're new to the game, you definitely don't want her, because not only is she going to be pretty hard to build, but you also need 2 units that are also very high speed and very well built to actually take advantage of her kit. And even then, I don't even think her kit is like something crazy, right? Like, if we actually honestly look at her S3 and the after effect right here, you're gonna see, sure, this looks pretty OP, but in this like demo, I'm 100% sure that this Ocean Breeze Luca is not at high effect resist, and if she was, what would happen is she would actually be able to cleanse her entire team. Same with just any other units. The only thing that's good about her is that her sleep and defense break are 2 turns, so Meteor Cowrix get pretty screwed. So I think she's a pretty good counter to like Meteor Cowrix, right? Because he can't cleanse himself on the first turn and then cleanse his team. And Meteor Cowrix aren't really run on high effect resist, so I think she's a very good counter to Meteor Cowrix. But there's already a decent amount of counters. Like Sharoon is a good RGB counter that doesn't require so many prerequisites. You also have like Faithless Lidica if you have her, right? You also have like Urban Shadow Shu. You have Savior Aiden, right? I know they counter in a different way, but there's a lot of counters already. So I don't really think that you should pull for her just to counter Meteor Cowrix, because you need like a ton of units to go before her. And as you guys can see, like the units that we have in this demo with her, we have like Fire Lidica and also Green Vivian. Like, these units you don't really see commonly in RTA, so I think even her value in PvP is not that high, because you're only going to be able to use her in like arena offense, or I guess like sometimes Guild Wars offense. I think in RTA she's way too hard to pull off because she needs too many units of different elements to synergize with her, and yeah, it's just very easy. You just ban one of them. You have to basically focus your entire draft around her, which makes it very easy to ban out. And in PvE she has no usage, and yeah, like I mentioned a million times, she's just going to be very hard to use because you need other units with her that are very, very well geared. So I think this unit at first glance not that great. Now, of course, I could be wrong. She could be like super broken or something. You might want to pull for her. I really doubt that will be the case because she just looks way too clunky and weird to play. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this unit down below, and I'll see you guys next video.